Hey guys, we're back. This time we're going to be taking a look at Mystic Scrolls from Draw Lab Entertainment. This is a really cool dice chucking game. They sent this to me to do a review of. And it's a lot of fun. It's really fast paced. And you're basically wizards running around in a library trying to collect the components to cast a bunch of scrolls. And you do that by rolling handfuls of dice and matching up the symbols on your spell cards. At the end of each round, you're going to figure out what spells were cast, resolve whether you heal damage or take damage from them, and then you move on to the next round. There's always a random spell up for grab in the middle of the table, and as people get those and add them to their collection, you get more and more spells that you can cast, which makes you more and more powerful as time goes on. Anyway, we're going to get right in and take a look. First thing right off the bat, the box is way smaller than I thought it was going to be. I know it's only a dice game, but it's really tiny, especially height-wise. So maybe only 2 inches thick, so that was kind of a nice surprise. Means it's a lot more portable than some games. So first up, we have our rule book. Very nice job with this one. There's not a lot of rules to the game, so there isn't much in here, but we have a nice background stories and character stories and whatnot in here. And then the different setups, depending on how many players you're going to use. You're going to use a different amount of dice in the pool. Basic table layout with all the stuff set up. And then there's a few quick pages about the rules and turn phases. And then some FAQ in the back. So next we have our player boards. If anything, these are probably the only part of the game that I was a little disappointed in. They're kind of small, very thin material, flexible. We'll have to see how they hold up over time. But each one has the character here and then your life over here. You have a little glass bead that goes on here that you're going to move to keep track. And they tend to shift very easily if they're bumped, so you got to keep an eye on that. Make sure that they don't get knocked around. Would have been nice to see the character bios that are in the rule book printed on the back of these too, so you can hand these out to people and have them know a little background on their character without having to look it up in the rule book. But other than that, though, they serve their purpose well, and like I said, we'll see how they hold up over time. So next we have our huge bag of dice here. There's 44, I believe, in there. And they're really nice, engraved, bright colors, so you can really easily tell the difference between the different faces. And they have different symbols on there that you're going to need in order to cast the various spells. Next we have our character spells. Each character starts with 3 spells. And they vary depending on which character it is, what elements you need in order to cast those spells. And on the actual character ones, there's ones like these that have 2 separate spells. You can cast either or both as long as you have the symbols to cast those. And you have ones like this that are single spell. And down at the bottom is the spell's effect. There are a lot of symbols to get the hang of. Once you've gotten them, they're not that complicated. Like in this case, it deals 2 damage and heals you for 1. This one deals 2 damage, and so on. Once you've learned the symbols, they become much easier to read quickly, but they can be a little confusing at the start. Last, we have our scroll deck. These are the scrolls that are going to be available in the middle of the table for anyone to cast and add to their spell book, basically. And one of these is going to be face up. You need to cast it for the entire cost on here in order to claim it. Once you've claimed a spell, these gray ones basically go away, and you can cast it at any point later on for just the white boxes here. The gray ones are ignored, which is kind of neat because it makes some of them quite a bit cheaper after you've acquired them and added them to your book. And again, with the other spells, they have the damage written on the bottom. And there's a look at everything that comes in the box. The gameplay is very simple. You're going to start with 5 dice. You're going to start with your character card and your 3 spell cards. There's going to be the scroll deck in the middle of the table. and one of them revealed. The start of the round, you're going to roll your dice. You can roll them as many times as you want. You can keep special ones aside that you want to keep, re-roll the others, and so on, as many times as you want. When you get the full amount needed to cast one of your spells, you put the dice on top of that spell, grab a handful more to add back up to 5, and keep going. As I said, you can set aside dice that you need, so if you roll a symbol that you want, you can set them aside and re-roll the others, but you cannot place dice that are only half cast onto a card. It has to be the full amount of the casting cost in order to put them on there. You can also cast the card that's out here in the middle. Has to be the entire casting cost, including the grayed out elements, in order to cast that card though. If you cast the card that's in the middle of the table, or there's a point where you can't draw the number of dice you need to get yourself back up to 5, you yell out stop. That ends the round. Now it's worth noting that if you can't draw the dice that you need, you don't have to stop. You can keep going, but if you do pick up the scroll out here, you do have to yell stop. And you can't yell it until the dice are on the card. So you need to keep that in mind as well. And after that's done, any of your cards and spells that have dice on them, you will go and fulfill the effects at the bottom, and that ends the round, and then you go on to the next round. If you've claimed the card from the center, that starts here on the next round, and now you have one extra spell that you can cast right off the bat. As I said, you don't need to worry about the grayed out boxes once you own a scroll. And that's pretty much how gameplay goes. Everything you cast is going to affect the player to your right, unless there's some that affect all, or some that have random players. Things like that, random amounts, that's what the regular D6 is for. And generally it's just a player elimination game. You're going to keep going until people are reduced to 0 life, and they're eliminated from the game. Overall, I really like the game. It's super easy to pick up and teach to other players. It's a very simple dice chucking mechanic where you're just matching up sets and patterns, and it's more of a speed dexterity game almost, because you're rolling the dice as fast as you can, setting them aside, casting a spell, grabbing dice, going on to the next one, and you're going to keep rolling, re-rolling, grabbing more dice, rolling, re-rolling, grabbing more dice until the dice are gone, or somebody claims that scroll in the middle. The end result, though, is a really fun, really fast-paced game, and with the right group of people, you can just have a blast. We often call it here as Harry Potter with dice. And it's just a lot of fun. I wish there was a little bit more variety in the spell cards. While the artwork is top-notch and everything has a spell name and things, a lot of the effects are very similar, which they're limited in what they could do with it, so there is only so many combinations of things they could come up with. And it's fine. There's enough variety in there. There's quite a few cards in the deck, so it's not that big of a deal. As I said in the beginning, about the only complaint I would really have about the game is the quality of the player mats being so thin, and the easy to bump the marker around. So we'll have to play more to see if that's really an issue, how well these hold up. We have had a few cases where the table got bumped and the marker here shifted a little, and if you don't remember exactly what you're on, you kind of got to guess. Not a major issue, but it is an issue nonetheless. Would have loved to see these same kind of character cards with maybe the, instead of the life meter here, maybe the fluff text here with the picture, and then like a dial counter on the back similar to King of Tokyo, where you have the little knobs on the back you can rotate and it would show the life totals on there. Something like that would have worked great, but as it is, this is functional. You just have to be a little more careful with it. Everything else about the game, though, is great and fun. I hope that in the future they can add a small expansion pack with maybe 2 more characters and their spells, maybe a handful more spells per here, and some extra dice for the new players, just to bump it up, because I would love to play at 6-player, but right now it caps out at 4-player, which is still okay, but I know there's a lot of groups out there with 5, 6 players, and something like this kind of gets shelved to the side because you can't play it with that many. And it'd be really nice to do. I don't see why it would be much of a problem other than maybe having to reach for the dice or being able to see the center card. Another small side note that's not a huge deal, but it might be to some, the cards are a very odd size, and it's nice because they're bigger, they have great, you can see the artwork, you can see the icons better, which is nice. They're a couple sizes bigger than a standard playing card. And the downside to that is, because they're larger, they're harder to find sleeves for. So if you're one of those people that has to sleeve everything, keep that in mind. You have a rough time finding the correct size sleeves for these. They did offer, I think, to the Kickstarter backers to get free sleeves, and they were going to ship them out after the game, so that's great for people who bought it on Kickstarter, but anybody who picks it up afterhand or whatever is going to have to find a sleeve set for them. I think Mayday makes a card size that will fit these. I just haven't gotten around to checking it myself yet, but something to keep in mind. Definitely an interesting game. It's a fun one. It's become kind of a little favorite among my kids. They like beating me down in it because I can't seem to do things fast as they do. But it is a lot of fun, though. Again, with the right group of people, you have a lot of banter going back and forth across the table, and it's just a solid game all around. If you're into dice fests, dice chuckers, you're going to love it. And the sorcerer wizard theme comes through on it well. With the dice are basically the components that you're running around the library grabbing in order to cast the spells that you have, and the randomness nature, because you're in such a hurry, you're not grabbing exactly what you need, you're grabbing something and then you look at it later, and that's represented by the dice throws. And it's just a really fun theme. I like the way everything comes together, and it has really cool artwork to boot. Anyway, that's a look at Draw Labs Mystic Scrolls. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.